give us a nod. Call this Monday, March 18th work session of the Jamestown City Council to order. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sheldon.
Here.
Brackman. Patanetti.
Here.
Reynolds.
Present.
Faulkner.
Here.
Bonfiglio.
Here.
Diversa.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
And President Doles.
Here, thank you. All right, this time we give opportunities for people to speak to the council. If you have any comments, please limit your comments to 5 minutes and leave your name and address. Does anyone here like to address the council?
My name is Andrew Jochum, Jochum, 2700 Horton Road and 29 North Main Street, Jamestown. I own two buildings downtown. First of all, I want to say thanks to everybody here. It's a tough job, I know it is, and we appreciate it. We all do.
Thank you.
I also want to just say, if I could, I'm celebrating my 50th anniversary as being a businessman in the downtown Jamestown
Yay.
this week,
Congrats.
and seen a lot of changes. But I also have hope, and I don't know a lot about what I'm reading in the Post Journal, but I thought I'd like to just express my opinions if I could. As I said, I've been here for 50 years. I was where the skating rink was, and we were moved out. I then bought the building that used to be owned by the Gospel Mission over at 29 North Main Street. It's a pretty little building. And it also has Vance Texas Hots, and down below it is the Urban Town News Building, which is now, then became Homelands. Both are vacant. And I'm going to try to be quick, but there were some gates that were opened behind Blackstone Enterprises that used to be sealed, and it took sort of an act of Congress, but I did get it done. They were sealed, but unfortunately it was not until somebody from the homeless were living in there and broke in, and I had this restaurant, and lo and behold, one day I walked in and somebody had cooked turkey in my restaurant and left another one out to rot. And at the same time, they'd broken into the back door, and at the same time stolen all of my tools. Since that time, I've had 2 other break-ins into the restaurant where they stole what else was left there. You may remember about 1.5 years ago, somebody rented my building to put in a market of sort, and I got a call from Mayor Eddy, and he called me on a Friday afternoon, and he says, "Andy, I hate to bring bad news to you, but they're shutting down the building this afternoon. Just wanted to give you a heads up." And it turns out they were selling cannabis illegally, but he had told me he was legal, and I had said to him, "My wife works for the courts. You used to work for the FBI. You can't do any of this stuff ahead of time." Well, they did anyway. That night it was broken in, and they broke into a window and tried to steal whatever else was left. I'm trying to kind of give you a little bit of background, and on top of that, I'm across from the arcade building. This whole area is the entrance to the Riverwalk. It's the main entrance. And once people hit First Street, they stop and they say, "We're not going any further." I had a guy from Rochester in to buy some things from me one day, and he looked at me and he said, "What the heck kind of a city do you live in?" As he was parked in that area. And of course I defended it. But my concern is my buildings are empty for a reason. I have rented them out several times. And in all these last few times, I have not gotten rent. I have been robbed. And people look and they say they see the arcade building and they say, "Look at that mess." Our area could be so nice, just beyond what used to be Carlson's Jewelry and etc. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of us are trying really hard, but we don't dare to rent. So I have a vacant building, and I don't know this document that you've got exactly, but I do know that I don't think I should have to pay $150 or $250 fine a year because my building is empty. I'm trying to keep them up, I'm trying to fix them up, and in fact, I'm trying to rent them right now. I have a church that would like to go into one of them right this moment. But I don't think you should punish the people that have worked so hard and stayed in this town for 50 years by threatening, if you will. Now, on the other hand, all sides have an issue in this thing. The arcade building was set on fire about 5 years ago. Luckily, they kept it at the side area. About 2 years ago, I reported 3 or 4 people in the arcade building upstairs. There were no less than 10 officers there. There was never anything put in the newspaper about it, and they got them out of there. It is an accident waiting to happen. That building is going to burn to the ground. I hate to say it. That one and the old Atlas building on the corner of Windsor and Harrison, I believe it is. The Crawford built it for a while, and of course, the word Crawford comes to mind for all of us. And all of the money that has been spent, and I don't want to say any of it was wasted, but I never heard a word about those 2 buildings getting the attention that they need. Somebody's got to get off the dime and either tear down the arcade building and that building, or come up with the buyer that wants to spend $50 million to do it. But it's time. Guys, we're going to look back, and I'm going to read the newspaper 5 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever it's going to be, and they're going to burn down, and people are going to say, how did that fall through the cracks? It didn't fall through the cracks. So it's tied to all of this other stuff. I know there are ghost buildings throughout Jamestown, and I know something has to be done. But I would also implore you to think about the citizens that are trying so hard to make Jamestown be a better place. That's why I reinvested in Jamestown when they tore down my building to put a skating rink in. Okay? So that's what I'm saying today, and I would hope that, again, I appreciate everything that you guys all do. It's a tough job, I know that, but I hope you'll think real hard on this before you do it. Okay? Thank you very much. Thanks, buddy.
Anyone else like to speak?
I'm Doug Champ, I live at 225 Bowling Street. This is just a glitch in the city's Facebook or agenda. When I looked at this tonight, I finally wanted to know what the agendas were for the committees. And the most recent one out there is we're sending Robert Samuelson to attend the annual Field Intelligence Officer Regional Coordinating Conference in November 3rd, 2021.
Something's wrong,
It's here, I can look it up.
so can we,
Okay, then take a look at what I looked up on your site. Those committee meetings are all dated to 2021. There's no agenda for any current committee meeting. You can go, it's on the site I brought up, I'll show it to you right here.
Obviously, we don't get that one.
Well, that's who the public is, the public is that. So anyway,
No, I was just giving him.
So anyway, I'm here to talk about something which I think needs a lot of attention. And that's what City Council, clear understanding what the difference is between a bond anticipation note and a serial bond. You got that in front of you in a resolution for discussion. And if you don't understand the difference, and you don't understand the mechanics of that financial instrument, you shouldn't be voting on it. And why is that important? It's because the bond that you're asking for is not the only dollar value associated, the cost associated with that bond. Bond anticipation notes are basically, or bands, are short-term financial instruments. Short-term, 1 year, maybe 2 at the most. It's a vehicle to take you to the serial bond format, where long-term interest rates and terms are applied. So when you earlier on had a bond anticipation note, which you've got to renew now, okay? That sets a window, but the window is only open for that purpose. And the serial bonds follow that in line. So the cost associated with that borrowing is not $2 million. It's multiples of that. The public needs to know what it's going to cost them over a period. I have no objection to why you want to do it. I'm just saying you can't go out there and tell everybody it's going to cost $2 million. You've got to inform them that the interest rate is this, the bond council cost is that, and then in addition of the serial bonds have a term of probably 30 years. If anybody disagrees with me, let me know. Okay? Now, I assume you all know or should know. Do you know a bond anticipation note, a serial bond? No. My point is this. You can't put resolutions like this with this amount of money out in front of these city council people unless they understand what they're voting on. Because if they don't understand it, how is the public going to understand it? So it's on there tonight. You can either talk about it, think about it, or do something about it. But I'll say you right now, unless you inform the public of what those costs really are in the long term, they don't have an idea of what their indebtedness is. The other thing is, I totally support Crystal and her team in the housing ordinance that they're going to talk about tonight. I also suggested that City Council read the new launched from the county 92-page report on housing in Chautauqua County. That was launched out here last week. I got a copy of it. I don't know if any of you got a copy. In order for you to make housing decisions, you not only have to understand what's happening in Jamestown, but you have to understand what's happening in the county. So I encourage you to all pick that up and read it. We were participants in that, Department of Development. I'm sure Crystal worked a number of hours on that. So that document's got a parallel to some extent what the ordinances are going to do. That information is keystone to what our housing problems are. This is a long-term implementation plan that needs attention, but it also needs investment and rethinking what the housing model for Jamestown has to be in the future. I talked about infill. That has to be part of the equation. It's necessarily we look at what housing is going to be, not next year, not 5 years, but 20 years from now. So I ask you to discuss between your council people what a bond anticipation note, how that works, and how a serial bond works, and what the real overall costs are for doing what you plan on doing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to clarify the agenda process, in 2020, as the city basically shut down for COVID and we went virtual, we combined everything into one full agenda. So that's why each committee is listed individually on the full work session agenda. Prior to that, there was no work session agenda for the full council. So that's where the change took place. Can't speak to anything before 2020 though, to work out.
Thanks. Go ahead.
Melissa Peternity, 346 Faulkner Street. I just would like to say that I think that the mayor's administration has done a wonderful job updating the website. You can look and press one button and get to anything now. Agendas, they're right there. City lights, they're right there. I think you guys have done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the council?
Hi, Pete Maraglia, 29 Gwendolyn. I just wanted to lend my support. I think I'm excited about the housing initiatives, the ordinances, from what I've seen so far. And I just wanted to maybe make one suggestion that might help this process. And I wondered if the city was considering maybe bringing on a full-time housing judge. Because I know there's been a lot of backlog with housing issues in courts and whatnot. And even if it would be a temporary position for a year or two, that might help and assist this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
May I come back for one more comment that I forgot to
You have a
make?
minute.
I had this, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, just one more thing that I've thought of for years, and it's probably illegal as can be, but it's a thought that I've had, and that is one of the main concerns for the city of Jamestown is out-of-town owners of property that don't maintain them. And it may be a negative to bringing in people, but is there ever such a thing as a $10,000 bond that would be attached somehow, because $10,000 doesn't mean they pay $10,000, they buy a bond, that would allow, that would go on to the purchase of a rental house or property that could be attached, if ever necessary, to house that got out of control and became a ghost house or whatever we want to call it, that you could go back on and use that money to rehabilitate the house. It would be like an insurance policy. I don't even know if it exists, but it's a thought that I've had for a long time. And the other thought I've also had, I've never spoken in front of this before, so that's why I'm using two of these, if I may. And I was talking to Marianne Spanos about this years ago, where we take a street, and I don't want to name a street, but it could be a 10th Street, that is run down but has potential. And we build cute little houses they could be for seniors 55 and older, they could be for whatever. They have to be owner occupied. Those buildings get torn down and then they get built by a developer. I mean, you see them in the big cities all the time. But we turn an X-10th Street into something really cute. I've seen it happen in Cleveland. My own son and daughter have done this. And all of a sudden, 44th Street, which used to be a dump, has inspired all kinds of people to put all kinds of money into these houses and fix them up. But we choose that one street, and then from there, it works its way over. We figure out a way to take the displaced people, but at least we're building new opportunities and new housing that is really, really nice and affordable. That's all I had to say, but thank you for hearing me. Okay, appreciate it.
My name is Bonnie Weber. I live at 23 Lake Street in Jamestown. I come before this committee to ask you guys to please seriously consider our homeless for next winter. Winter comes every single year. For the last 2 years, we have struggled to come up with reasonable solutions for the homeless in our community. I furthermore support Crystal and all of department's developments on the ordinance. We need to hold people accountable. We need to make safer homes for our city, for our children, and we need to find a way to work together to combat. And I vote against moving forward with these. And thank you, Crystal, and all of Department of Development for all you have done to try and make safer housing. I do hope that we can come together so this time next year we don't have another problem with the homeless. For 2 years in a row, we have failed to come up with proper planning for our homeless, and I hope this is something that we can consider for next year. Winter comes every year. Let's not drop the ball next winter. Thank you.
You've been out in the field, haven't you, ma'am?
Every day.
I know you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Jimmy Rue from Freddie McDaniel Avenue. I'm new back to Jamestown. I was born in Jamestown, raised in Jamestown. 25 years ago I went to Puerto Rico for better opportunities. Earthquakes and hurricanes brought me back. The snow is hard enough on me. I have a LLC, a BDK Martial Art Academy. Karate is a way for teaching kids to discipline, respect, and self-control. This May 18th, I'm having a tournament in Urbana Avenue Community Church. I want to extend my invitations to the City Council. Show up, be part of the great event. It's going to happen every year. It's just going to get bigger and bigger because I'm going to push it. Like I said, martial arts is definitely a way for a kid to learn to be self-defense, self-respect, disciplined, and controlled. Our kids nowadays are playing too many games, and I actually focus on real life stuff. They can do 5 push-ups, it's a lot. We need to get these kids back in shape, get rid of diabetes. So I'm going to leave this here for the council. You're all invited, everybody here is invited. It's going to be a great thing.
What church is it in?
Church of Urbana Avenue Community Church. It's going to be on the 18th of May, 2024. I was told by Mr. Torres, to come down here and talk to you guys. He says, Billy. Yeah,
Yep.
Billy, I went to school with him many years ago.
Okay.
Do you have more of those?
Well, that's the only one I had for now, but I will,
What
you
we
can get copies and just
we
place
can
them all over the
have
place.
Joe scan it and send it up to us.
Like I said, and spread the word, get the kids out there. They can just come and watch if they want. Plus, I wanted to say, I'm the only school in Chautauqua County certified by the All Ability World Martial Arts Association. What that means is we deal with kids with special needs. And right now I'm working side by side with John Vogan from the Resource Center. And we have an All Ability team. We're in 4 states. That means one day we will be competing states against states, people with special needs. And we say all ability because we all have abilities, and our ability is greater than our disability. So please support us. Come on out on the 18th. It's only $5 to come in. They're going to have plenty of food. You know, that church is a big place. They're a great community. And the fire department's going to be there just in case we need a hand if somebody gets injured. You know, we're going to have everything properly done. And hopefully in the future we have this, you know, big tournaments in CC and JCC. You know, that's what we used to do them back 25 years ago when I was here. So we need to get back, bringing back the discipline for the kids. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, Jeremy Rook from 30 McDaniel Avenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Drop something out of your pocket.
Oh, it's a good behavior ticket that I give the kids in school because I also work in the school system of Jamestown. And my wife's a teacher also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. You're welcome. If that, what do you want to do? We'll just do it under housing. You wanna go? Yeah.
Yeah, they're here, they're both here, so now that
Go ahead.
Lindsay's here. So Lindsay, and on behalf of the Chautauqua County Department of Health, Lindsay is here to just give some informational sharing stuff of things that are going on in the county.
So, the mayor has a lot of names to remember. It's Lacey.
Or Lacey,
But I know
I'm
she
sorry.
knows-
And how many times
She
did I
called you Lacey earlier.
I know.
was here. I know.
Someone has me a little frustrated.
I know how many names you have to know. We get to meet lots of different people throughout the day and have to remember a lot of names. But I was originally thinking you all showed up probably to hear from Jessica and I, so this is lovely. But I know there's many different things on the table that y'all have going on and are working on. We will make this very quick, and we'll just kind of introduce this so that if there are questions or things, we can answer those for you. But we just wanted to come, again, we are from the Chautauqua County Health Department. We have the pleasure of working in very close partnerships with Crystal and her team, and Mayor Eklund has really opened the door for us to continue and strengthen a partnership with the county around the built environment, which is a particular priority of the health department. So a number of times we'll get questions as to, well, what is the health department, what are they concerned with the housing and built environment? But there is just copious amounts of generational research that shows specifically what an asset communities like ours can be in improving health outcomes if we plan that infrastructure properly and if we maintain that built environment. There's a lot of great work that I could speak to, but you all would know of the underpinnings of that work that has been started here within the city of Jamestown, improving multi-use, routeways throughout the city. We'd love to see more of that. All of the housing initiatives that you're working on. And today we're here to just, again, offer our hand in partnership with that, but also to introduce what is now state law and will be coming down with lots of different rules and regulations through the county. Then of course we'll be working with the municipality, specifically in 14701 around lead in homes and really abating and resolving the lead issue. We talk about it primarily impacting the health outcomes for children, but it cannot go, I cannot go without saying that it also is an issue for those over the age of 60 as well, that we see poor health outcomes that can be impacted through exposure to lead, which is of significant concern in an area in a county like ours where almost a third of our population is over the age of 60. So, not only are the children, of course, a priority population, but are over 60 as well. And it was noted already at the discussion tonight, so you all, it's like we scripted this or something. You all were perfectly leading us right into this. But there is an aspect of what's coming down. It's the lead rental registry, and I'm going to have Jessica, our environmental health director, talk just a little bit more about it. Really at the heart of this, we start these conversations early so that we can get good information out into the community. This is not something that we need to be afraid of or concerned of in terms of, the point of this is not to hurt local property owners by any means. It's actually meant to really support local property owners. There's a lot of funding opportunities and things that will flow down through to us But this is more so a way to rein in what would, we informally talk about as predatory property ownership, and predatory, rental property ownership. We do see that happen in, small town America outside of Chautauqua County and just all across the United States. Property owners who don't live in the county or really even in the state, and some of them not even in our country, purchase up properties, and unfortunately what they do with that money is not pour it back into our local economy. They take it back to where they live. So it becomes kind of a double down on a loss of economy for our local municipalities, on top of what our major concern is with the health department is the improvement of health outcomes for our children and older adults. So with that, I'll turn it over quickly to Jessica. She'll just give a high-level overview. Again, this is just the start of the conversation. Just wanted to get this out early, and we look forward to working with you much more closely and helping to support the good things you're already doing.
Thanks, everybody. So my name is Jessica Worksley. I'm Director of Environmental Health. As Lazy mentioned, a lot of what we have done previously has been reactive to children having been exposed, or properties having an issue, and then we go in and we work with it from there. The point of the lead rental registry is that this is a preventive approach. So the idea is that every structure in the 14701 zip code that has 2 or more rental units will be subject to this inspection process on a 3-year cycle. So the statistics that we've gotten from New York State estimate that's approximately 5,062 apartments, rental units. We are just sort of ramping up. The state's just rolling out what kind of funding they're going to be able to support us with, what kind of software platform this is going to look like. Essentially, the software platform is going to have multiple different users. It's going to be open to landlords so they can register their own properties. It's going to be open to me and our team at the health department. It will potentially be open to code enforcement officers. And each of those different sort of levels of access will be able to see a different part of the registry. So the idea is that the landlords can use this tool to enter their data, enter their inspection records, and then we are able to see that and follow up, and hopefully the platform will create the paperwork that also comes with all of these things, so we can send the letters and notifications as needed. The state approached this as having a few different options of implementation. Given our workforce availability, at this point we are anticipating that the county health department is going to be sort of the main hand in doing inspections. Ultimately, the county health department is responsible for implementing this program in 14701. And we will also be responsible for clearing the properties after the inspections. If something is found as a hazard, we will be responsible for going in and clearing the properties. And then each of these rental units will receive some sort of lead-safe certificate. We don't know exactly what that looks like yet. There's certainly an opportunity for us to partner with Jamestown Code Enforcement and other 14701 code enforcement officers to figure out the best way to facilitate that sort of certificate. But that's the basic idea of it, is that everyone's gonna have to. We're gonna be the ones doing the work because we don't have third-party inspectors. This isn't targeting only 14701, it's across the state, so there's a large number of Erie County properties, there's a large number of Niagara County properties, which is part of the reason that we don't anticipate having any sort of third-party inspectors available, because we have a feeling they're all gonna be sucked up by Buffalo area. So we're anticipating the local health department, being very involved in this process. With the current timeline, again, we're ramping up, we're trying to figure out the things. We still haven't seen the software platform, so that's gonna be a hurdle. But Given the current timeline, we would anticipate getting inspections started in fall of 2025.
Is this in conjunction with what the city's doing?
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
We are
talked
going,
about
we are
last
going, we are going to work hand in hand with the city to ensure that it is a collaborative effort that builds upon what, each other are already doing, so as not to duplicate services, but also to not do separate things that create, onus for property owners and things like that. So, that's where we're very thankful that Crystal and the mayor have just been so open to us coming and working together, because this is an opportunity, not just, we're working specifically right now on the lead issue, but there's so much wrapped up into health outcomes outside of just lead. It's, air quality, it's the whole healthy homes type movement, that really we have an opportunity here to do some wonderful things in one fell swoop, for the community. So we're excited about that. Just in closing too, before, maybe you all have other questions that we can answer, but, this is a great layered opportunity, so if you're familiar with government and, community systems, there's never one major funder like Bill Gates that comes in and writes a check for us to do everything. That'd be wonderful. So we have to layer in all of these different funding opportunities, and those funding opportunities come with very specific guidelines for each one of them. Jessica and her team, Anna Powell, have just done a wonderful job over the last handful of years, really moving this forward and organizing all of these payers and all of these grant funds to really make some comprehensive headway in 14701. I can't even name the number of homes that have been rehabbed, windows abated, doors abated, often at no charge or very little cost to the property owner. And I'll also say too, that the county executive and the chair of the legislator, Pierre Chagnon, have really championed this at the county level as well, and are backing this, specifically earmarking a number of ARPA funds, that will be spent, a majority right here in Jamestown. So, the county sees what you all are doing and sees that there's an opportunity here that we can come alongside and just accelerate that progress. So we are excited to continue the great work that's already started, and just add this on, to really keep it moving.
Did you say, Claire, if I heard correctly, you said you're gonna inspect every 3 years? Is that what you said?
That's the mandate under the public health laws. Every unit, every 3 years, unless it comes to a point where we know for certain that all lead hazards have been fully abated. If we can document that all lead hazards in a rental property have been fully abated, then they will then be exempt from the
I
rental
had owned
registry.
a property about 20 years ago, and I had them check for lead, and there was lead underneath, but it was painted over. And is that still legal, that way is now, is it still the same?
So that would be considered, that's not a full abatement.
No.
No, because the idea is that potentially something, friction could rub and expose
Right.
that lead paint again, and then it's there. That's why we've been really pushing with, especially with these high friction surfaces, doors and windows, where you're constantly rubbing up against each other, that those are replaced rather than
No,
simply
I'm
painted
glad it's
over.
changed, because
Yeah.
to me that didn't make sense, but they passed it because it was, as long as
Yeah,
there's no chips
and
or
that was,
anything,
that was more of a, for lack of a better term, bureaucratic Band-Aid. That they had a certain amount of funds, they knew this was an issue, and so it was kind of the middle of the road remediation that you could do at that time with the funds that they had. But this problem is just not going away. I mean, if you see at the federal level, the, water infrastructure and lead pipe inventory that's being done, I mean, federal level down. After Flint, Michigan, it really just tore the lead issue right open. So, this is something that I think they've, really come to terms with at the federal and state level, and have really ponied up to put a lot of
That's good.
effort.
all right, thank you.
Lacey, for clarity, I just want everybody to understand, when they keep mentioning 14701, it's not, obviously Jamestown is the biggest mix of this, but it also includes West Ellicott in the township in the 14701. So when they refer to 14701, Celeron, West Ellicott are included in those numbers too. And that's the way they have to run it. So so
I'll just add
everyone's
in
clear.
there, related to this topic, the BPU is involved in an initiative right now. It's kind of voluntary basis for all homeowners to check their water line that's comes into the house through the foundation, to see if that water line is, copper or lead, or obviously if it's a lead, you have a problem, but they're involved in an initiative now, but I think it's voluntary only.
Well,
It's a
it's
federal
voluntary, except that the city does need to document where everything is. So I think that they have encouraged folks to be part of the process, but eventually they're gonna have to figure out everything,
Sure.
yeah.
I mean, I guess my point is, at this time, they're not,
They knocked on my door a couple of weeks ago, Joe.
yeah,
They
they're
came
not,
to my house.
they're not demanding they come in your home.
Yeah.
Which leads me to a question I have is, what's been frustrating on our side, and also, in my prior career, it's frustrating, is the backlog with the court system. Let's just say, for example, you have someone that owns 2 or 3 units, because you're stating this is for someone that owns multi-units. If someone says to you guys, you're not coming in my rental property, do you have a warrant? If you don't have a warrant, you're not coming in. Then we see the whole thing play out in court, they hire an attorney, and the can keeps getting kicked down the road, and this goes on and on and on. How would you respond to that? How would you deal with that? What is the state gonna do? What is, about situations like that?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is that the state is still determining what teeth look like for the enforcement. But that is definitely part of where we are hoping to partner with the community partners to figure out what effective enforcement actually looks like.
Because you can pass anything you want.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
actually, bringing it to fruition is a whole nother thing.
We know that well, especially from the environmental side of the health department in terms of, we do have enforcement, capacity within the public health law for the state, specifically around properties and things. To what extent you can move that is what is being discussed at the state level at this point. It's something that Jessica and I have worked closely on in North County around water infrastructure and things like that in North County. So those are continued discussions. There's also the opportunity for us at the county level to pass, our own additions to some of these rental registry, initiatives. And there could be enforcement, tied there as well. There's a lot of different, housing discussions taking place right now at the county level. But your point is heard and well taken. And
Especially when you're dealing with an LLC. We've had.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My apologies.
It's all right. I'll won't let you live it down.
Please don't. Worst part is your names are written right here.
You get a free pass.
Oh, Dave, on.
While we're on that subject, we'll move to housing.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did have several speakers, 4 in fact, come to give their input and their comments. All of them were pretty much in favor of the 3 ordinances that we'll be discussing later tonight, and at our full voting session. And with a few additions. We had the idea that the county put that 92-page report out that's available for all of us to look at, that we can piggyback on and coordinate different programs that the county has for housing. One speaker asked that maybe we have a community group formed for input on these different ordinances. Another offered for accountability for all parties, not just landlords, but tenants and residents alike. And then the issue of having that Andrew, Mr. Jocham mentioned, was brought up by another resident about possibly having the city be a named insured or having a bond attached to each property where if it did go south and burn or fire or whatever reason become condemned, that it might be able to secure some funding through an insurance company that was of interest too. We also had somebody speak about reaching out to demolition companies outside of Chautauqua County. There's several in the Buffalo area and other places throughout the region. So there was discussion again about the emergency demo process, and for the record, I guess, for those who might not have been here for housing, the average tear down demolition is around $33,000, and start to finish from the beginning of the process to condemn it and to do the proper abating of different items in the house, it could be 4 months. So it's a long process, and we'd love to try to circumvent that somehow and make it happen a lot quicker. As far as demolitions went, Crystal reported that 5 have been completed, 6 are under environmental reviews, 9 are being surveyed, and 3 have been put out to bid. And then we did touch on the upcoming tax foreclosure for the county and getting the land bank involved in listing some properties that they have ownership of, and same with Jura, to make them marketable through some sort of an auction process. So that's pretty much what we covered in housing.
I
Thank
have
you.
one update.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's something new. We actually officially have 6 completed demolitions. And that was emailed to me in the time that we were in housing committee. So it was one that I knew was underway, but I didn't know if it had been completed yet. So still 5. There are 5 in environmental review and 9 that are being surveyed currently, with another 3 that are out to bid. So
Crystal, on the 6 that got completed, are those all land bank owned?
nope,
No.
nope. Combination of land bank and city. Yep.
Thank you.
What's the time frame on the ordinance?
So
Ordinances, just to give us-
Casey is going to go through our presentation quickly, but we would like to bring them to vote the vacant property ordinance and the nuisance ordinance for this month's voting session.
Okay.
And then we still have some things that we want to work through on the rental ordinance, rental inspection ordinance, and hopefully be able to work out logistics and final details to be ready for an April voting session.
Just a clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good sheet.
Okay. Yeah, are you ready for Casey?
Yeah.
All right.
Do it all right now.
Okay. So Casey Folk is joining us. She is the Deputy Director of Housing, Policy, and Community Development.
It's a long title.
It's a long one. And she has actually worked very hard on all of these ordinances, done a ton of research. We did not just invent the language. We did not start from zero. We looked at a lot of different communities that have already implemented very similar ordinances. Of course, we looked at it in context to our own community, kind of pieced together some different things that we liked about various ordinances, but really tried to make them fit and be right-sized for Jamestown. So Casey's gonna just kind of hit on the highlights of the 3 different ordinances, kind of where they came from, why, how we got here, and where we see these ordinances going, and helping us really kind of take back control of properties in our community. So
Okay, so everyone's got their packets that I gave you all. We've got our proposed housing ordinance packet here. There's a certificate of occupancy. This is from Rochester. This is not ours, but a lot of what we did was based off of this one here. Then we've got the rental inspection ordinance, the public nuisance ordinance, the vacant property ordinance, and then our helpful links. So if there's something in our little presentation that you find interesting, you just scan the QR code. It'll bring up your website. That also includes a New York State rental registry presentation that the State Health Department gave us a few months ago. So you can scan and look into that a little bit more on your own time. Okay. So
Develop problems that have been reported to us, you know, we hear them every day, all day, is the affordability and the quality of our housing. It's affordable, but no one wants to live in them. Our absentee landlords, like Lacey said, you know, they live out of state, they live out of country. We run into that all the time. A big majority of our problems, you know, stem from landlords that are just, they're absentee. Even if they live here, they just don't take care of their properties as much as we'd like them to. And then we've seen an increase in abandoned and condemned homes that are left uncared for, and they become the neighborhood eyesore. And that takes us back to like that broken window theory, right, where the one is broken, so then all the houses start to kind of fall in suit. So the solutions that we all came up with as a team is just we want to strengthen the housing regulations, and that's why we're here tonight to talk about our 3 ordinances. To incentivize and create home ownership, and some of that can come from the other projects that we're doing, and discourage property owners from leaving homes and units vacant for undetermined lengths of time. All really hard lifts, but I think we can do it. So our first ordinance and discussions are vacant property ordinance. It's pretty straightforward. HUD did a really big study on our nation's vacant property ordinances in different municipalities all over. And they came up with this 8%, which is like an average on how much your property value can decrease from having vacant and abandoned properties in your neighborhood. So that's a huge hit to not only municipalities and their tax revenue, but also as a homeowner. If you go to like sell your property, you're going to get a significantly less amount for your property if your property value is low versus if the whole neighborhood is being taken care of. So we're hoping that this will reduce our crime related to vacant properties. We know that those vacant properties are constantly broken into, they're getting set on fire, people are stripping them of all that they're worth, and then they cost us more in the long run. We want to increase property values and deter property investors from neglecting to make a home habitable. So there's a proposed fee scale. This is all still in draft, so councilman, if there's, you know, mayor, if there's anything that we want to change, we have all the freedom in the world to do that. So there's 2 different scales. Rochester does it this way, Binghamton does it this way, and I've talked to the supervisor of Sherman. She said that this was a great way for them to do it, and they had a scale based on the year and then the square footage of their commercial properties. So for year 1, it starts at $500 for residential, and for commercial it's $1,000 or 5 cents per square foot, whatever's higher. That continues up to year 5 or over, which hits the $2,000 mark, or $5,000 with 25 cents per square foot. If there's more than one private dwelling, so if it's a duplex or more, then you're looking at an additional $250 per residential unit. And then the commercial property fees are determined by the set fee or that square footage that we just talked about. We know that it's unlikely that our property owners are going to report to us that their property is vacant. No one wants to pay that fine. So we will have to rely a lot on what the county finds, you know, when we're doing our inspections, on our condemned properties that they've been sitting for over 1,000 days, and neighborhood reports. So we really have to rely on the public to help us out, but I think we can do that. And then this is something that we've kind of toyed around with a little bit, and that's properties must obtain a certificate of occupancy before becoming occupied to ensure the health and safety of the individual and family. Our rental inspection is going to require a certificate of occupancy for our rental units. We can have that implemented for our vacant units, so they can even be inspected before a homeowner purchases it and moves in, but it may be redundant to have that along with the rental inspection, so that's up for discussion. So then next is that rental inspection and registration ordinance. Rochester, we modeled a lot of this off of Rochester. They saw a decrease from 284 children to 187 children in just a few years by implementing this ordinance. Now their inspection was, what was that?
In lead poisoning.
Yeah, and lead poisoning, sorry. Thank you.
There were fewer children with lead poisoning.
Yeah, sorry. The children, they're still there. They do their inspections every 6 years. They're gonna have to decrease that, right, to every 3 years, but they also have that honor system where as long as everything's abated and everything comes back with a clean bill of health, every time they have an inspection, they can waive that inspection. That way they're not paying the inspection fees, they're not having someone in their home, but that's something that has to be earned, that's not just given to our property owners. So we're also hoping that this increases the safe quality housing units in our area, preventing units from becoming vacant and then triggering that vacant property ordinance and fine, and then again deterring the property investors from neglecting to maintain their properties. So we have a proposed fee scale. Our first inspection would be $50 per unit, and then if it fails the inspection and needs to be re-inspected, it's $25, or every subsequent year after that initial inspection can be $25 also. Failure to register as a rental unit would be a $50 fine, and then that can be increased. This is all still up for debate. We're kind of waiting on a lot of this stuff until the state gives us more guidance. We're also hoping that, if they have a fee scale, we can just mimic that. That way we can just go hand in hand with whatever the county is doing. So then again, we're not doing double the work. That would be a waste of time and resources. But this would also trigger that certificate of occupancy upon inspection clearance. So if anyone's renting a single unit or more, they would have to have a C of O to rent to anybody. By not having a C of O would cause the property to be shut down. It'd run very similar to the way that we run our businesses. If you don't have a C of O, you can't have your business running and operating. Same thing with the housing units. And then failure to correct your inspection can be a civil penalty up to $250 per day per infraction. It can fall under 1-1, which would also lead to 15 days in jail as the maximum.
Does that put a lien on the house also?
We haven't quite decided if it's going to be a lien, if it will go to like collections. We have a few different options that we're kind of weighing. I don't know if you have a preference.
It may depend on the situation, because we have that currently, something that we have to make decisions on. So, for example, and this is not the same, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but if we have to demolish a house, it makes 0 sense to put a lien on the property, because that property is now not worth what the lien would cost, and that property owner has likely already walked away. So we have to look to a collection type model. So it really may be based on the circumstances.
Great. So,
Pete?
Yeah. Thank you. Do you have a definition of vacant property?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our
The
snowbirds,
ground floor is occupied, the upper floor is not.
Yeah.
Vacant property, half vacant, what?
it'll go by unit. So that upstairs unit could be considered a vacant unit. However, that's something that we can determine later, because maybe someone doesn't want it to be a 2-unit anymore and they would like to convert it to a single,
Well, I'm thinking the commercial buildings downtown. You've
Yes.
got tons of thousands, hundreds of thousands of square feet vacant.
Yeah.
And
We
that's-
want to discourage that, Pete.
Yeah, but if you don't have a market here to fill them up.
What if someone is
penalizing,
using a building for storage? Like,
That is a
Storage?
use.
Yeah.
Mr. Jokum, if he's got a building and he's using it to store.
That is a use.
That's
a
being
use.
used, then
Yep.
it's not considered vacant.
No,
She
correct.
touched on the subject that's come to my attention, is someone who's a snowbird and or someone who's just listed their house.
Yep.
Yeah, so if it's listed with a agent, you're waived of this probably. As long as you're actively selling, it can't just be like, I've got a sign in my front yard that says, for sale by owner, and I'm just sitting on it for 10 years. It's not gonna fly, right? List it with Century 21. Let's get it going. The snowbird thing, if it's longer, they can fill out a form. So there's a form that we've created that's in draft that just states, you know, I live in Minnesota and I have family here, and this is why it's vacant this many months out of the year, and this is when I typically stay. Vacancy has to be completely empty for, I believe it's 6 months, where we can kind of start to trigger that, like inspection to make sure that it's vacant. It kind of runs similar to like when a bank does their inspections to see that if a property's vacant after it's been foreclosed on. Our court system also has a definition on abandoned, and that takes us to a whole other thing, very similar to how we get our 19A properties. We have to have a court rule that it's vacant and abandoned, but
Have you given any thought to someone trying to hide behind the veil of, well, it's an Airbnb?
yeah, I don't know offhand what any of our plans are for short-term rentals if we have one at this point, but I think that would just be that would add to another discussion.
Sure.
Yeah.
I could just
But-
see someone saying, well, it's it's you know, it's vacant, but it's
So-
an Airbnb.
If
Here's
it's
the
registered,
thing,
right,
right?
then like that's a use.
Right.
And here's the thing, if you have a property and you are taking care of it and it is maintained and it is not a constant nuisance where people are breaking in and the police are getting called to it and the grass is 6 feet high and the windows are broken and the likelihood of it even coming to our attention is not really high. Right? If it looks like it is occupied, chances are no one's going to report it as being vacant,
I
which
think
won't
that's what maybe,
let it
you know,
rise to the occasion of our attention. I'm not saying that you should do that. We want to encourage everyone who has property to have your property occupied. That's what increases our tax base for the city, which is what we all want and need because it's beneficial to all of us. But we're not going to penalize someone who is taking care of their property, whether they're in it all the time or not. If they are, you know, that's not the goal. Of course, we want to increase tax revenue, but we don't want to penalize people who are actually taking care of their properties. It's those who are sitting on empty property because of capital gains, right? They have no intention of actually doing anything with it, and they just want to sit on it for however long, and are not mowing the lawn and have constant break-ins and don't answer the phone when we call them. You know, these are the properties that are really detracting from our community and decreasing our property values. So,
Like when people purchase at the auction for a few grand and they don't live here and then they never fix it because they realize it's too much work to figure it out, and then it sits here because they only had to pay $1,000 for it.
Sure.
You know, like that.
and they never pay taxes on it.
And then
I
it
think
just goes
that's what
vacant.
needs to be conveyed to the public is that, you know, we're not looking to harass
Correct.
the commercial properties downtown.
Correct.
We're not looking to harass the landlords that are taking care of business. I know landlords personally that their places are very nice.
Yep.
They keep up on things. That's not who we're after. These ordinances are going after people that are out-of-towners. They don't care about our neighborhood. They don't care about the crime in the neighborhood. And it's the
They're negligent.
egregious, it's the egregious
Yes.
landowners or commercial buildings that we're looking
Yeah.
at, so.
And frankly, if we can start to discourage that kind of behavior through ordinances like these, that will send the message that it's not easy to prey on our community and our taxpayers. So go do that business somewhere else, or don't do it at all because it's not okay. But it also will start to give us control back of our own community's destiny and what the property values can be. And then those second floor vacant spaces that are so hard to fill because our market is not where we want it to be, will start to turn the tide on that. And it's gonna take time, but we have to start somewhere.
It kind of like what I said earlier, as far as, you know, the teeth behind this. Obviously, people, owners are entitled to due process.
Absolutely.
What is that gonna look like? Is this gonna be run through city court? If these ordinances passes, if there's violations, everything still has to run through city court, correct?
Correct, yeah. And until the housing court model changes, and I know that there is some discussion about doing a unified, centralized housing court with the county. That is still in discussion, that has not been decided, but I think that that is something that, you know, we certainly are very interested in exploring. But for the time being, yes, it will have to go through the current process.
How big is the backlog on the housing, judges?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but what I can tell you, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And so what I can tell you, Councilman, is that we are allowed to bring 20 cases per week, 1 day a week, so on Friday mornings. And that has been our maximum for the past few years since the pandemic. We are making sure that we are maxing out that calendar, and we have started to push the envelope a little bit. And, you know, just there's a need to bring more cases to court, and so we are advocating to be able to increase the number.
And we hoping to get more days in court if we're working with the county, I don't know.
That's a possibility. I think there's a whole lot of detail that still needs to be worked out, if that's even going to be feasible. It's, like I said, it's in discussion. It's not something that it has been set yet, but we are definitely very interested in that kind of a model. But for the time being, you know, we do have a new housing court judge who has started to hear cases just in the past couple of weeks. So, you know, we'll see how that goes, and you know, hopefully the courts will start to open up more slots for us for housing cases. But we do try to get compliance through code enforcement first before we bring cases to court. So court is always that last resort. I'm sorry, Casey. Please continue.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
With the new proposals, are there any protections for the landlords also? I mean, if you come in, which you're more than welcome to come and inspect my house anytime you want. I keep the lawn nice, there's flowers all over, except for here, but, if you came in every 2 years or whatever you're planning on doing, and nothing's wrong with it, and everything, and all of a sudden I get tenants that just trash the place. Is there any, you know, I'm trying to, I mean, not mean person, but if you know that the landlord is taking care of the place, you know, 6-8 years in a row, and then you go in and it's just trashed, is there any protection for the landlords when you do inspect these, as far as if we have to take somebody to court or whatever, that you'll stick up for us too?
That kind of thing will be taken into consideration as like a case-by-case basis. So like if you've passed the last 6 inspections and now you've got, you know, tenants that are causing problems, it would be the same as like just complying with our system, we work with you and that kind of thing. It wouldn't be an automatic fail, we're condemning your property, that kind of thing. It's not anything like that. It would be, let's come up with a solution, right? So if you got cited tomorrow for tall grass, you'd get a letter in the mail and someone would say, hey, please cut your grass. And then if you don't, and it continues, and then it becomes outrageous, and now it's past your knees, then you go to court, and then it's non-compliance, and that's where things can get a little tricky. But as long as that communication remains between the landlords and the department, I think that that's a conversation that can be had, where we, you know, work with you. We're not here to put the hammer down, you know, every time, yeah.
So, just to add to that, the idea is not to penalize property owners that are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So if you have a track record where you are constantly in compliance, if there's something that we see that is a code violation, even in one of those times, right, we will let you know that, and we will give you an opportunity to fix whatever that violation might be. It could be an electrical outlet that you know, the cover broke off, or, you know, it could be all kinds of, you know, different small minor things. We always will work with the property owner to take care of those things. The goal is not to penalize you, it's to help you get into compliance so that your property is safe and meeting those code regulations, and that your tenants are protected, their health, safety, and welfare. We are trying to structure the rental inspection ordinance in a way that it actually incentivizes good behavior and decentivizes bad behavior. So if you are persistently having good inspections, that will incentivize you to continue that, because your fees will start to decrease over time. Then you'll be given opportunities to self-certify. So you can send in pictures, you can send in your registration form, and we can trust that those pictures are accurate, and that, you know, you've had 6 great inspections. There's no reason the 7th is, you know, we say, okay, you can send us your pictures because we trust you. There would be no reason for us to not. So we're looking at ways that we can format the rental inspection ordinance so that we're, again, incentivizing that continued good behavior and decentivizing the bad behavior.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So, New York State, as they implement their own registry, they're hoping a target by November to get it up, launched. They're just waiting on like that third-party system for reporting purposes, so then we all can use the same system, nicely run. But they do suggest a 15% lead failure rate initially, so we could be seeing a lot of violations come through. It's not the end of the world. As Lacey mentioned, there's going to be some funding that comes down the pipeline. The state doesn't want to see everyone fail. They just want to get everyone to be in the right space and healthy again and have decent quality housing. So by creating our own legislation here, we can make some tighter rules. If our ordinance is a little bit stricter than the state's, ours will supersede that. So while they're focused on lead, we can be focused on other things like major health hazards that when we walk in, we know that this is not a livable condition, and you know, children or anybody shouldn't be living in these kinds of conditions, right? Like, we all have seen the homes, we all know the homes. There are certain things that this will help us get a little bit more leverage to clean up those areas. And then having this registration will allow for our local authorities, like our firemen and our police department, to have proper contacts. So a lot of our LLCs, we still don't know who's behind it. We still don't know a phone number. We still don't know an address. So by having this, they would have to designate someone that's local. So if they lived in Las Vegas, they would have to designate someone within a certain mile radius that can respond in the event of a fire or a major break-in or a big problem. And then we would have a number on file for that designated property manager or designee for the LLC.
I just have a comment about that.
Yes.
If a lot of these LLCs are Delaware-based, you're never gonna find out who the owners are. They have an agent, all right, in Delaware, okay? And that agent, if there's an issue, can hire an administrator here, but you're never gonna track them down.
It's difficult. New York State recently passed a law.
That's about impossible unless you get federal, you know, law enforcement involved.
Yeah.
Then it has to be a multi-million dollar case.
Right, and we have experienced a lot of that. That is definitely a frustration that we have, not being able to track down and hold a responsible party accountable. New York State very recently passed a law that requires LLCs to register in New York State, and they must provide the principal of the LLC's contact information and their name. So that is new. I think it passed, you guys might know,
Very new, yes.
like maybe January.
Are you saying that the Delaware LLC cannot own property in New York State?
They can, but they must register with the Department of State.
Then on another front, when the LLC buys a property, it has a certificate of nature. So right now we file our TP 584 or 5217. We have to have some.
You're right, but you'll hire, you know, set up Delaware LLCs, you have an agent in Delaware.
Well, you have to have human though, whether it's a human.
Oh, no, it's
or
also
a-
human, trust me.
Yeah.
You pay them good money per year.
Yes.
So, or I'm just saying, it's a huge hurdle.
And as far as enforcement of that goes, you know, I think that's remains to be seen. It is so new that I can't say that we've yet seen a lot of success with being able to track down those LLC, the principals or the designees. We're hopeful, but the intent behind that law is certainly on our side.
So the
we'll see how that
LLCs
goes.
that you have already, before this law went into effect, they are supposed to give you a contact person by law.
They're supposed to, but that doesn't mean that they have,
Right.
and I don't know how the state is going to go about enforcing that, or how long that might even
Well, the
take.
state would probably be able to track it down easier than we.
We call them all the time. We've got Department of State on speed dial. And sometimes
I know
we
it's
end up with information and sometimes we don't.
Can I just ask you one other question, as far as like knocking down houses? Do you have a percentage on houses that, because they're so old, have to be removed, asbestos removed? Is it like 80%?
Asbestos is not a number that we necessarily know. Lead is much more, I think we have a much more accurate estimate. So any property that predates 1978 is likely contains lead, and so at least we know that. And so if we, and I don't know off the top of my head how many in Jamestown are pre-1978, but it's a lot, and I want to say upwards of 95% of houses in the city are pre-1952. And so, just even knowing that, the numbers are staggering.
Is it, I'm just trying to get a handle on everything. If a house has no asbestos, but you found lead, is it easier to get that torn down than the opposite, where there's no lead and asbestos? What do you have to do with lead? I know what you have to do with asbestos. I know what you have to do with asbestos.
Yeah.
To get that, but what do you have to do for lead abatement? I mean, you can't just.
For a demolition,
Yes. What's?
it's much less intensive, and I don't want to give you wrong information. I don't know what the certified abatement team does when they go into a property to abate lead. Asbestos is much more cautious as far as, or caustic, as far as toxicity and dangerous in that kind of a scenario. But I don't want to give you wrong information, so.
That's okay. I mean, I'm just new, so I'm just.
I would be happy to talk to an abatement, a certified abater, I guess would be the term, and see if they'd be willing to come into even a housing committee meeting and explain the process. I think that would be good information to have.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, back to the final.
It's the last one, so we're almost there. Our last proposed ordinance tonight is just making our nuisance ordinance a little bit stronger. As it stands right now, it's pretty much, it's open, to interpretation.
It's a little too subjective.
So we just need to strengthen it to protect us and also to protect our residents, right? So some of the big changes is having a different fine scale and including a receivership into this ordinance. So if there is a egregious issue, right, and the person is not fixing their property, Corporation Council can appoint a receiver to take rents and profits from that property and pay to have the nuisance remediated. So whatever that nuisance is, whatever the director can declare as a nuisance. Now, in the actual, this is where it gets kind of tricky, so you have to just double check in your public nuisance ordinance that I gave you guys. It does list in the second paragraph all of the laws that have to be followed. So it's like New York State beverage law, traffic law, public health. It goes down a very long line. So there's several violations that have to occur at a very, very high level to be determined a nuisance. One of the bigger things that we want to discuss tonight is in our ordinance, it states that if there are 3 or more arrests not including domestic violence cases. But if there are 3 or more arrests in a 24-month period, then the property can be declared a nuisance. A suggestion from Crystal earlier was reducing that amount of time for 3 arrests in 6 months to declare it a nuisance. That would not be against the property owner. That would help the property owner in the event of an eviction. So we can determine that it is a nuisance property, give the proper paperwork, so then at the time of an eviction, you can say, these tenants are causing this issue and we need to speed up the process to evict them. So that's not so much against the property owner as it is kind of a helper, a crutch. To get through eviction court, because it can be a super long and lengthy process and it's just not great. But those domestic violence cases would be protected because we don't want anyone to be injured in the process or retaliated against. And then the additional information, just to kind of break it down a little bit, the nuisance can be declared for non-compliance in New York State public health law, vehicle and traffic law, beverage and alcohol law, and then penal law, and then any of our property maintenance codes cited in 215. And then if there's issues that are being left not dealt with, the city could foreclose on a home for up to a year until that nuisance is taken care of. So that's if the property owner is not taking any action to fix the issue, then we can shut it down and then work with the property owner to figure out a plan on how we can get this property back online in a safe and healthy manner for anyone who occupies it and then the neighbors that are surrounding the building or home. Okay, so helpful links. This is where I got all of my fun little information for today. You can also scan with your QR codes. I worked really hard on that before our meeting, so make sure you use them. Definitely take a look over the certificate of occupancy from Rochester. That should help clarify some of these issues. If anybody from the public would like a copy of this, I would be more than happy to make copies for you all. Do we have any more questions on our ordinances?
Thank
Great.
you.
Yay.
All right, we're done with housing, that's a long one.
It was a long one. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
We'll move on to finance, Brent?
Thank you, Mr. President. First resolution we have is that the mayor is authorizing amended lease agreement with Jamestown Community Baseball for the use of Russell Dietrich Park Stadium for 13 weeks during the months of mid-May to mid-August. The years 2024 through 2030, subject to the approval as performed by the Corporation Council. The Tarps Council come to us and told us that their current rent is quite a bit higher than most of all the other teams in the league. And it was kind of a strange contract. There were certain incentives on there that couldn't be met. The mayor negotiated this new contract and we approved it.
I have one question. How come 7 years? Who came up with that number?
So, they negotiated early on their current contract 2 years, and then we extended it 5 more.
5, okay.
So that's how we arrived at the 7.
Thank you.
And the term is shortened, correct? The amount of months they're gonna use it?
Correct. There were a lot of changes. The monthly usage, Elliot can correct me if I missed something here. Mr. Champ?
Well, the monthly usage is based upon the Tarps Council's actual use of the building, which approximately is 13 weeks.
The office will not be used in the off-season, right?
No.
Correct. So this correlates to so you're all aware of how this money was arrived at, correlates to what we rent the park at on a daily or weekly basis for other organizations. So that's how the number was arrived. Wasn't picked out of the sky. There really isn't any incentives for them. However, I and Elliot both encouraged them to do some of those things that are truly attainable that were in the old lease, as far as the marketing, as far as the Wi-Fi show ups, as far as those, which I have no doubt they're doing anyway. So really, the things that we couldn't and they couldn't control were removed from the lease.
The next resolution was the bond resolution authorizing issuance of up to $2,740,081.02 aggregate principal amount. Serial bonds for the city of Jamestown, county of Chautauqua, state of New York, pursuant to the local finance laws, to the additional cost of the acquisition and construction of buildings. This was not fully discussed in the finance committee. It was agreed upon by 3 of the 4 committee chairmen to discuss this in whole in this work session.
Do you want her to do it now, or do you want to finish your resolution?
She can do it now.
I'm gonna stand just because I've been sitting. So, the expenses to date, the expenditures are $4,890,000, and the ban that we got last year for the garage was $2,850,000. So currently we have expenses over that ban amount in the amount of $2,040,081. And I've asked Mark he's given me the number to complete the project, which is $700,000. So I am putting forth the $2,007,000 in the resolution for the ban renewal. There is $1 million in an FRB grant that we are anticipating to get, although I talked to FRB and they couldn't tell me when. So the $2,007,000 less the million is the $1,700,000 that I'm asking for now, which on the staff report, it's the current ban amount of $4,608,000 plus the $1,170,40. So we're at $6,300,000 for the new ban amount that we will have to take care of and roll over and renew May 17th. And I know it's only March, but in talking with Capital Markets, they needed some information from me. They needed 50 days to shop around and try and get us, the best interest rate, who they can use to purchase the bonds for this ban. And it's a little early in the process to know how much it's gonna cost, what the principal payment is. We have to make what the interest payment is. I can tell you that on last year's, the interest rate was 4.5%. We had to make a principal payment of $10,000 and an interest payment, I think it was 80 something thousand. So that all happened at the same time when we did all of this. And we have to get the money one day and turn around and pay down the ban the next day. So it's not anything that really needs to be approved next week at the voting session. By the end of April, I hope to have the number for the interest amount, what the principal and interest pay downs will have to be made when we do all of this. Last year, the letter that that's in the folder from Capital Markets was dated May 2nd. So I'm expecting the timing to be about the same. So that's where we are with that.
So just a quick question on this. So basically, it's a $700,000 overage or increase. Are we anticipating to get the FRB?
We are, yes. I mean, it's just.
Do we know when? That's the $1 million there.
Yes.
2.7. Erica, there's confusion with the 2.7 to the 1.7, I think.
Yeah, the 2.7 is if we don't get the FRB.
If we get the FRB, I mean, I'm asking right now for the $1.7 million. If we don't get the FRB, I'm gonna need to ask for another $1 million. Right now, I'm anticipating we're getting the FRB, so I'm asking to end it for the, an additional 1.7 on the ban for now. I don't know when, and when I talked to, the gentleman at FRB, he couldn't tell me when we could expect that. I think they only meet a couple times a year, so it's kind of a waiting game.
Mark, those aren't really overages, I mean,
Well,
Right,
over is a
correct.
long word, but.
Yeah, they're,
that's 700,000.
they weren't included in
They weren't included.
in
They
the
weren't
contract for the building,
Okay,
yes.
and then I saw, Mark gave us a paper where just the, from 2023 to 2024, all the prices went up. I think one of them went up like $20,000 on the lifts, 20 or 25,000.
For one of the lifts.
So that, I mean, that, I can't prepare for that. We have no control over that. One other question, and Council, America would know, but was there, when we bonded for the 4 whatever million there's originally, was ARPA money there then or no?
The 4.6 for last
When they
year?
when they bonded for the 4.6 million, did we have ARPA money then we could have used? I don't know, I'm just
Yes.
guessing.
It was when we first started.
When we first started, this project was 2019, 2020.
So
there
there
was
was
no
no
There
ARPA.
was no
That's all
ARPA
I
then,
want,
but
yeah.
we didn't,
So there was no ARPA money, yeah, that's,
not till 3
because
years later.
okay, that's fine.
The original plan, and I believe it was 2018, maybe 2019.
2019.
Under Mayor Teresi, his idea was he wanted to start from scratch. He wanted to build a brand new facility on
Yes.
Crescent Street
I remember.
down there.
Yep.
There was
That was
there was a
still-
resolution that passed. I believe there were some architect drawings done to the tune of about $250,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around there. But then that plan switched, and we wanted to go with a building that was currently there because we thought it would be cheaper than starting from scratch because you already had something there. But
Well, I
yes, there
think
was no ARPA funding.
I think Crescent Street would have been a lot more.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I mean, you started from the ground up.
It was 4 million in his original.
All right.
So the original site for Crescent Street was 4 million. The new site was estimated at 2.1 at Hartley. So it was supposed to be a savings over Crescent Street. Correct. And the initial plan that we had, going back to 2019 and 2020. Where we are at now is not there, and that's what Erica has